Imagine a father waiting outside his children's school. A simple moment of joy shattered when ICE agents suddenly surround him. 7 years of hard work, sacrifice, and love, all at risk in an instant. What happens when a devoted dad, who's never committed a crime, is taken away like a criminal in front of his innocent kids? This is the story of Miguel, a man fighting not just for his freedom, but for his family's future. Stay with me as we dive deep into his journey, a heartbreaking battle against a system that doesn't see the person, only the papers. Will love and hope be enough to bring him back home? The sun was still weakly burning in the Tucson, Arizona sky as Miguel Arevalo turned off the engine in front of his children's school. He straightened his blue shirt, sweaty from work at the construction site, and looked in the rearview mirror as if something was out of place. But the parking lot seemed calm. Parents chatted, children laughed. Miguel took a deep breath. "Daddy!" Luna, 9 years old, shouted, running toward him with her backpack bouncing on her back. "How was school, mija?" he asked, kneeling down to hug her. "I got a perfect score on the spelling test," she replied with a wide smile, while Esteban, the older son, 12 years old, approached silently. "Good job, champ. Let's get some ice cream to celebrate." That simple, sweet moment was what Miguel cherished most since crossing the border 7 years ago. He had come from Mexico, fleeing extreme poverty, promising himself he would give his children what he never had: peace, safety, and a future. But there was something in the air that afternoon. As Miguel held Luna's hand and started walking back to the truck, he saw 2 white SUVs parked across the street. Dark windows. Drivers didn't get out. Esteban furrowed his brow. "Dad, is that ICE?" He swallowed hard. His eyes met the agent in the passenger seat, a silent exchange of recognition. His blood ran cold. There was no use running. He squeezed Luna's hand tighter. "Don't let go, okay? No matter what happens." "What's going on, Dad?" He looked into his children's eyes, teary but trying to keep his voice steady. "We're going to get through this together." Then the SUV doors opened. Miguel Arevalo, one of the ICE agents, shouted as he hurried toward the family. Miguel stepped back instinctively, placing his children behind him. The asphalt seemed to melt beneath his feet, and the chatter of the parents around them turned into a tense silence. "Dad, what's happening?" Luna asked, her voice trembling. "Stay calm, mija," he said, trying to sound firm. 2 uniformed agents approached. One, younger, held the black folder. The other, older, wore a stern, indifferent expression, like someone who had seen this scene dozens of times before. "Mr. Arevalo, you are being detained for violating U.S. immigration laws. We need you to come with us. Now." "Please, my kids are with me," Miguel tried to plead, his voice breaking. "We have a warrant and clear instructions. If you resist, you will be handcuffed in front of them." Esteban stepped forward, angry. "He didn't do anything. My dad works hard every day. He's not a criminal." The older agent sighed, impatient. "Son, I understand, but this isn't my choice. We're just enforcing the law." Miguel knelt before his children, looking them in the eyes. "Listen, Daddy loves you more than anything. Go with Mrs. Carla, okay? She'll take care of you until your mom comes." "No, I want to go with you," Luna shouted, grabbing his arm. "Sweetheart," his voice finally broke, "I promise this won't last forever." Mrs. Carla, the neighbor who had come to pick up her grandson, watched from a few feet away, eyes wide. "Come on, little ones," she said, reaching out her arms. When Miguel was taken away, handcuffed and head bowed, Luna's eyes remained locked on his, and the wind carried his last words. "I'll come back. I promise. Miguel was pushed into the ICE van, handcuffs tight around his wrists, and his heart pounding like a drum in the heavy silence. Inside, the air conditioning was colder than the agent's stares. There were two other men in the back seat, heads down, with expressions mixing fear, anger, and resignation. "Name?" asked an agent, opening a clipboard. "Miguel Arevalo." "Country of origin?" "Mexico." The agent jotted it down without looking up. Miguel looked through the small fogged window of the van. He could still see the school in the distance, the colorful backpacks, the smiles, the promises of a future that now seemed to be falling apart. When they arrived at the detention center, the contrast was brutal. Tall fences, cold concrete, and lost gazes. Miguel was searched, photographed, and fingerprinted. He was given a gray uniform and a thin blanket. The smell of disinfectant and sweat filled the air. "Bed 12, cell 4B, said the guard, not looking at him. In the cell, he found 8 men. One, thin, with a gray beard, extended his hand. "I'm Ruben. I got here yesterday. They caught me in front of my daughter's school, too." Miguel nodded silently. His chest tightened. "This place is a game of Russian roulette," Ruben continued. "Some get lucky, others disappear. My kids, I left them there. They saw everything. Mine too, crying, screaming. We just wanted to work, hermano. That's all." Miguel sat in the corner of the cell, tried to pray, but couldn't form the words. That night, he didn't sleep. He only heard the echo of his daughter's voice. "Daddy, I want to go with you." While Miguel spent his first night in the detention center, Carmen held the phone with trembling hands. The call from Mrs. Carla had been brief but devastating. "Carmen, they took Miguel, right in front of the kids. It was ICE." She left work in a rush, crossing the city with her heart pounding. Luna was still crying on the neighbor's couch, curled up as if wanting to disappear. Esteban tried to be strong, but his red eyes gave him away. "Mom, it's my fault. I asked if they were ICE. He got scared. He knew." "No, son, it's not your fault. It's nobody's here. It's because we're immigrants, right?" Carmen lowered her head. She didn't know how to answer. She spent hours on the phone trying to find her husband's whereabouts, line after line, waiting music, transfers. When finally someone from the detention center answered, the voice on the other end was cold. "Full name? Miguel Arevalo. He is in custody. We cannot allow visits today, nor calls. The lawyer may request a preliminary hearing next week. But he has young kids. He works. He hasn't harmed anyone." "Ma'am, I understand your frustration, but he is in an irregular status." The call dropped. Carmen stared at the phone as if it were a sentence. That night, she lay in bed without Miguel by her side for the first time in almost 10 years. The house felt bigger, emptier, more hostile. She turned to Miguel's side of the bed and found the wristwatch he wore to work, still marked by dry drops of concrete. Luna appeared at the bedroom door, her voice shaky. "Mom, will Daddy come back?" She closed her eyes for a moment. "He promised, sweetie, and Daddy never breaks promises." The next morning, Carmen sat in front of a small law office downtown Tucson. The facade was simple, but inside, the walls were covered with newspaper clippings and certificates, photos of reunited families, smiling children, headlines about prevented deportations. At the center of it all, behind a cluttered desk, sat attorney Rafael Duarte. "Are you Miguel Arevalo's wife?" he asked, his accent blending Spanish and English like someone navigating between worlds. "Yes. He was taken yesterday, in front of the kids. By ICE. Rafael frowned. I've heard this story more times than I'd like. ICE is stepping up detentions in public places. Schools, hospitals, churches, places once respected as sanctuaries. He glanced over some papers, then looked at Carmen attentively. Does your husband have any criminal record? Never. Not even a traffic ticket. He's worked since he arrived here. We have utility bills, rent, all in his name, and he pays taxes with an ITIN. That helps, but it doesn't guarantee anything. The law doesn't see character, Rafael said, grabbing a folder. What can we do? First, we file a bond request. Then we build a strong case, witness statements, proof that he's an essential part of the community, a present father, a hard-working man. And we need to prove that deporting him would cause extreme hardship to the family, especially the kids. That's our strongest point. Carmen nodded silently. Rafael's words cut like knives, but also brought hope. Do you have children? She asked. Rafael smiled, melancholy. I do. That's why I fight. Because no father should be separated from his children over a piece of paper. He extended his hand. We're going to bring Miguel back, but we have to move fast. Miguel had been detained for 4 days. Time there didn't follow clocks. It was measured by heartbeats, the footsteps of guards in the hallway, muffled shouts coming from other cells. He and Ruben shared the iron bunk bed. The mattress was thin and sleep was light. Miguel spent hours sitting, staring at the wall, replaying scenes from the life left outside. The smell of toasted bread at breakfast, Luna brushing her doll's hair, Esteban in his soccer uniform, Carmen dancing barefoot in the living room on Sundays. Everything now seemed so far away. Did they say anything? Ruben asked, lying on top. They said my lawyer filed a bond request. They're reviewing it. That can take weeks or be denied in a second. I know. Miguel stood and walked to the small barred window, where a timid ray of sunlight came through. You know what hurts the most? He said, his voice hoarse. It's not being here. It's the fear that my kids might think I'm a criminal. Ruben got down slowly from the bunk. They won't think that. They know who you are. A father who works, who loves. A dignified man. It's the system that's blind. In the next cell, a man began softly singing a lullaby in Spanish. His voice trembled but was sweet. Other detainees fell silent, respecting the moment. Miguel pressed his forehead against the cold wall. I just wanted to see their faces, just one more time. Ruben put his hand on his shoulder. You will, but you have to hang in there a little longer. Don't give up now, hermano. That night, Miguel dreamed of Luna, holding his hand, saying, Daddy, I knew you'd come back. The courtroom was small but heavy with tension. Carmen sat in the front row with Esteban and Luna by her side, the two dressed in their best clothes. The judge, a bald and weary man, flipped through papers while the ICE agent sat silently next to him, organizing documents. Rafael, the lawyer, whispered, Today we'll request bond release, but it depends on the judge's mood and what ICE has against him. Miguel entered escorted. He wore a gray uniform, looking thin and worn down, but when he saw his family, his eyes lit up, if only for a moment. Luna jumped up from the bench, impulsive. Daddy! The judge banged his gavel. Silence in the court. Carmen held her daughter, eyes watering. Miguel tried to smile at the kids, but soon lowered his head. Rafael stood. Your Honor, Miguel Arevalo has lived in this country for over 7 years. He has 2 U.S. citizen children, works regularly, and has never committed any crime. His deportation would cause irreparable harm to the family, especially the children. We have letters from teachers, neighbors, even the local church pastor. He is part of this community. The Ice Age countered coldly. Mr. Arevalo is in an irregular status and was reported anonymously. This indicates a risk of recidivism. We request he remain detained until deportation is processed. The judge looked at Miguel for a long moment, flipped through the documents, took a deep breath. Mr. Arevalo, the situation is complex, but considering your clean record, roots in the community, and the impact on your children, I grant bond release while the case is reviewed. A collective sigh swept through the room. Bond set at $7,000. Rafael touched Carmen's shoulder. We have a chance. Now we need to race against time. Miguel looked at his children with tears in his eyes. I'm coming home. I promise. Miguel still felt the weight of the handcuffs on his wrists hours after leaving the detention center. The lawyer's van had dropped him off 2 blocks from home. Rafael thought it best to avoid drawing attention. Miguel walked slowly, shoulders slumped, eyes fixed on the cracked sidewalk. When he turned the corner, he saw the front door open. Carmen stood there, as if she knew exactly when he would arrive. She didn't run or shout. She simply opened her arms. Miguel went to her and let himself sink into that embrace. Silent, heavy, salty. You're back, Carmen whispered, eyes closed. For now, he replied quietly. Luna came running down the hallway like a lightning bolt. Daddy! She jumped into his arms, and Miguel dropped to his knees. Esteban followed behind, hesitant. Miguel looked at him, and the boy rushed to hug him too. There, in that moment, on the doorstep, the 4 of them merged into one body of longing and relief. That night, the house felt more alive, but everything carried a new weight. Miguel showered slowly, put on clean clothes, and sat at the table with his family as if every gesture were sacred. There was food, timid laughter, but no one spoke about tomorrow. Later, in the bedroom, Carmen watched her husband stare at the ceiling. The judge only gave us time. They could still send me away. And until then? Until then, I live every minute with them. I show that I am here, that I belong in this home. She took his hand. We'll fight, together. Miguel nodded, but knew the deportation clock was still ticking. The next hearing would be the biggest test of their lives. The day of the final hearing dawned gray. Miguel wore the same blue shirt he used at work, the one Carmen had insisted on ironing the night before, as if smoothing not just the fabric, but also the crumpled hopes in his heart. In the courtroom, the silence was broken only by the tapping of pens and the shuffling of papers. Rafael, more serious than ever, placed before the judge a thick folder labeled Miguel Arevalo, Motion to Cancel Removal. Your Honor, this man is no threat. He is a father, a pillar in his community. We have here over 40 letters of support from teachers, neighbors, co-workers, people who know him not by his immigration status, but by his character. The judge read each letter slowly. The ICE agent said nothing. Perhaps even he knew deep down there was no case against this man. Carmen squeezed Miguel's hand tightly. Esteban and Luna stood silently behind them, eyes fixed. The judge looked at them, then at Miguel. Mr. Arevalo, he said firmly but less coldly, this court recognizes that your deportation would cause extreme hardship to your family, especially your U.S. citizen children.
Based on the evidence presented and your clean record, this case is closed. A pause. You may remain in the United States. Time stopped. Miguel didn't understand at first. Only when Carmen began crying quietly and Luna shouted, "He's going to stay!" did the ground come back beneath their feet. Esteban smiled for the first time in weeks. Outside the courtroom, Rafael shook Miguel's hand. "Miracles happen, my friend, but you all fought for it too." Miguel looked up at the sky where the sun finally broke through the clouds. He breathed deeply. Today I exist, not as someone in hiding, but as a father, as a man. And in that moment he knew the promise made to his children that he would come home had been kept.